Okay, so we're going to go through style issues, and it's always a little confusing. Correctness you define is very clearly. We define input-output behavior. I try to define style also clearly, and that's why we have this CheckStyle package. But let's go through some of the rules and why the rules might exist. So I've used CheckStyle, and many things are highlighted here. So let's go through some of them and see what the error might be. So what about here? This line is highlighted. What's going wrong here? So final and static. I'm doing the same thing. I already have CMs in inches, and I'm having another CMs in inches. That's a good one. But the program is not so smart to figure that out. Yeah. It's not a double. 2.54 is double. It does not follow static variable conventions or final variable conventions. So the reason I have two of these guys is to show you the right convention, the wrong convention. So no error here because this is not, what are the conventions? Okay. So you're going to see a message like this. Must match pattern, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Someday you will do regular expressions. Okay. The class that does it used to be called 181. I don't know what it's called now. And it's called theory of computation, I forget, I guess. But whenever you see something like this, it means that conventions are not matched. And you can always post a message in Piazza. There's no brain power needed to follow conventions. Okay, but that's what it's saying. It's really saying, look, it's showing you all capitals here, that it means it should contain at least one capital, and then after that it can contain capitals or numbers. So that's what's really going on, and infinite, as many times as you want. Okay. What's wrong with this guy? It's good that we have a tool to find this out. Yeah.
It doesn't follow the Boolean convention. It should be private and have getters and setters.
Okay. So what do you think I'm trying to do here, by the way? Declare a final. That's what I really want to do. But my CheckStyle program is too dumb to figure that out. Actually, I could change that to figure that out from case convention. So it says, oh, you've got a non-final variable. So you're making two mistakes. One mistake is that you're making it public. Okay? And what's the other mistake? Sorry? The case conventions are not being followed. Okay, now the CheckStyle could be smart enough and said, two mistakes make a third mistake, which is that you're really trying to declare a final variable and you forgot the final. Okay, and it's so easy to make this mistake, by the way. Okay, and human eyes, how many eyes looked at it? Only one or two people found the mistake. So it's good that some computer program spends its energy doing that. Okay, so here we get the error. Must match pattern. Sorry. It says, firstly, it says there's a variable to which you're assigning a number, which you haven't explained. So a number is magic when it is assigned to a so what? Yeah. So it's some arbitrary number that confuses the programmer. But why is this not magic here? Why is this 2.54 not magic? It's because it's assigned to a final variable. This guy is not final, so this 3.4 becomes, so you get three errors. Okay? So 3.4 becomes a magic number. Variable must be private and have accessor methods. Not really private. I just take the CheckStyle messages. It should not be public, is what we're trying to say. Okay, and name must match pattern, and you can see there that it's got the lowercase as the first letter, small a to small z. So that's the problem. Okay, questions? Anything wrong with this statement? So it uses java.util.scanner, and I've put the fear of imports into you and said, well, that's probably illegal. That could be one problem. Yeah.
But you only use the name of the class as the name of the instance.
So name of the instance, instances don't really have names, right? Instances can be stored in variables that have names, sure. Yeah, so objects also can be stored in variables that have names. But what am I really trying to do? I'm declaring a variable called scanner. I'm trying to define as type is type here. That type is really a type. It's not an object. So, and so it shouldn't be static. You guys now see when you give this, all kinds of errors are coming in your head. Actually, there's going to be only one scanner instance you'll ever use. There's only one system.in in the world. So why have an instance variable? That's why I made it static. That I don't want to allocate two different objects for this because I'm going to ultimately scan, unless I'm going to have multiple scanners on the same system.in, which gets very confusing, okay? So I'm going to use only one scanner on this. So static is not an issue either. But would you write, if you were to use the scanner, is that the line of code you would write, or would you do something else?
I would definitely do something else because then you later have to say that your scanner object is something different. Just using system.in and declaring it doesn't actually call it.
So how would you be different? You're saying that later there may be problems that of some kind, right? And how would you do it differently? This question has become much more deep than I really intended it to be. Yeah.
Go ahead and ask for the whatever input I'm trying to take. So I'd just say that it's a int or a string what I'm trying to take in system.in.
Okay, so you're saying maybe the way I'm going to use it, it's too early to declare this variable right now. I should declare the variable later. That could be it. Yeah, somebody else?
Well, you would put it in the main method.
Okay, so you might put it in the main method. Maybe. Okay. Guys, when you're leaving class, I've said that before. Either tell me before or I have a good reason. The class is till 11:15. It's very disturbing for you to leave in the middle of the class. Okay.
You want to import it.
You want to import it. The question became, this was supposed to be not such a deep question. I know you guys are thinking much deeper answers. Okay. So just import it. Why do you think? I mean, is that a good rule that import it rather than have this long name? If you look at Google checks, just put on Google checks sometimes. They will complain a lot because your line is not 80 characters. Okay, they want the lines to be small. Okay, and your lines are going to get much longer this way. Okay, and so just go and import it. It becomes, I shouldn't have to scan and read java.util.scanner. I mean, scan this. I do. So I'm just doing a lot of bad things. Okay, and I would say so just say scanner equals new scanner. In fact, this is a rule that I rely on. All my checks assume that you're going to just use the short name. Okay, just because I was I had to finish things quickly and I didn't want to. That simplified my life. Okay, so if you see here, the message is no full type name. So when you see messages of this form, some type name, there's a certain syntax I'm following here, where I give a name for the error, and then I go and give the line and so forth. Those are my messages, okay? And I'm using this structure because my grader program is going to then parse these messages to give you guys grades, and it's much easier to parse the messages with this, okay? So no full type name. Okay, now you see a little different kind of error. Who's giving this error, you think, on this line? The Java compiler. Okay, and can you guys see anything wrong with the set P? Yeah.
It doesn't actually do any setting.
It doesn't do any setting. One problem. Can you see another problem? That's not what Java compiler is doing. That's what I'm going to do. Okay. UNC checks. The Java compiler is complaining about something else. And this is a really important error. I mean, I cannot tell you how many people have come to me and said, I spent 12 hours on this. Thank you for finding this error. And it took me also a long time to find that error. Is it because I didn't initialize? It's not doing anything. That's like you said, you're just printing it out. You're not setting anything. That's one thing. But that was not the problem. Yeah.
An error catch?
Try catch, but you know, you don't need a try catch actually here.
Because you could just not throw a string and then it's going to be printing nothing.
Actually, if there's no, if P doesn't, so when I print line P, what P am I printing, by the way?
Oh, there's a,
Oh, that's exactly it. Oh, there's another P, and oh, that creates problems. There's a P here, there's a P here, and which P is this referring to?
it doesn't know, and that's what it's
No, it's the one that was packed.
It's the one that's closer, right? It's the one that's in this block.
It's not pretty, but
It's not this P. I wish, I mean, and by default, this check is not on. So in my CheckStyle slides, I asked you guys to go and turn on certain checks and be very aggressive about turning this on, okay? If you use the Java Eclipse system to generate setters, you're going to actually, they're going to call this P, okay? So the error is, the parameter P is hiding a field from the style error CS1. So this is called a field, and this is a parameter, and it's hiding. Please turn this on. And if it doesn't turn on, and I think you have to turn it on more aggressively than I suggest in those slides, turn it on for parameters also. What I show in the slides is that if you declare a local variable called P, which is in the block, it'll complain, but you should just turn this on, okay? And later you're going to use inheritance, where the problem gets even worse because of what I believe is a really, a flaw in Java, okay, which, having used Smalltalk, that didn't have that problem. Where when you inherit a variable, you can inherit a variable that is the same name as the superclass variable. If you don't understand what that means, that's fine, but that can cause even more problems. Okay. What about this particular if state, this particular method? Okay, so I'm saying, this is how I'll grade your program. I'm going to check if it has screenshots. If it doesn't have screenshots, what do I do? I print not tested, and you can say that because indentation is okay, but when I normally type, my indentation is all over, okay? If it's correct package, if it's not correct package, what does it do? Cannot run. And if it runs correctly and has all these things, I say full credit, okay? Now, suppose that is the logic I want. Can I improve on this somehow? Yeah.
This can be rewritten with ands rather than.
This can be rewritten with ands. But you see, I have three cases. So what you're saying is if it has screenshots and has correct package and runs correctly, give full credit. You just care about that case. But there are other cases too. Then I'll have to have some other else which has two other ands and another else that's the last condition, right? So what's wrong with this though? Why do you, rewriting it with your way, why is that better? Uses up less horizontal space, that's good. What else? What about understanding the program? You guys took some time, right? When I said, what if it's not has screenshots? You look down and say, this is, a lot of people used to put comments here. Matches not has screenshots. They would put a little comment here, not correct package, okay? And I can just rewrite this this way, without ands. If not has screenshots, I do this. Else, if it's not correct package, do this. Else, if not runs correctly, does not run correctly, and then I go and do the other steps. Okay. So the difference between, so what do you think happened here? I got a little error here. What do you think that error is saying? How did the error get detected? Or what could the error? The error has to do with the fact that I didn't use that other kind of branching, which is I call else branching versus then branching. So how could I detect something is wrong? Yeah.
For your alternative, doesn't that assume like they're mutually exclusive? Like
But even this is the same thing, right? Not tested, cannot run. I think I have one extra case there. But it's more, except for the fact I added a few print statements. Aren't they equivalent? Because aren't these also mutually exclusive? Not tested versus tested?
yeah.
What did I do? Rather than saying has screenshots, I said not has screenshots. Right? So that the action occurs immediately. And the branching occurs in the else part. Whereas here I'm doing then, and then finally getting to the crux of the matter. Okay, and when I use less horizontal space, I'm actually nesting more. I have this if is nested in this if. Whereas here, there's no nesting. You're just branching off the else, and you don't embed an if statement inside another if statement. Okay, so the error that you find here, I'm sorry they're not completely equivalent. I forgot what I'd written in the previous one, but I just have some extra test cases there. Extra cases there, I believe, one extra case. So you go and see, you go in here, you say, see, nested if else depth is 2, max allowed is 1. Okay, so the 0th level is the top one, next is the first level. And when you go to 2, this CheckStyle says, sorry, try to rewrite this. Okay, don't have nested ifs. Have concatenated ifs, but not nested ifs. Okay, so this is then branching versus else branching. Okay. Now, by the way, there's a little yellow sign here, full credit. Well, actually, I'll get to that later because you'll see it later. Okay, now there's a complaint here with this else. What do you think the complaint is? Or do you guys see something wrong here? This is the extra case I added. Yeah. What am I intending? Through my indentation, I'm being very Pythonish. Okay, I'm saying, hey, I want that both the things to be done, full credit and well done. Okay, I added this line. That's what I meant. This was not the previous one. So I should have had braces. Okay. So this is what the messages say. Okay, that's not required by Java. If you see my slides, I never have braces. Why? Because I am trying to fit all that code in one slide. I can't afford that one extra line of a brace. But when you guys write code, please use braces. There's one student who sent us a program and said, I have looked at this program again and again. It is right. Please tell me what's wrong. And my TAs found the error, and she had written exactly this kind of code that she'd forgotten the braces here. Okay? So this is not a hypothetical error, kind of error. This happens a lot. Yeah.
Do you want us to use braces if there's only one line under?
Yes, I do want you to use braces even if you have one line. I will not take out points for that. But CheckStyle will go and warn you to do that. Why do you think I might want that rule? What do you think happened here? What do you think happened here? I said full credit. Then I said, why not go and say well done also? So I went from one line to the other line, and I forgot there were no braces. That's the kind of error that happens a lot. When you have to change, that's the process I'm trying to show here. That in the previous one, I just said full credit. Now I said, hey, let me go and say well done too. And so I would recommend you do that. And I learned this habit from a student of mine who went for an internship to Google or Microsoft and came back and said, I'm going to use braces everywhere because that's what they require. Okay? So I would recommend, but there's no points taken out for this. Okay, now, what's wrong here? We've gone through this before, but I see this error a lot in your programs. Sum is a method, and I've named it. Method names should follow what convention? This print array has the first character be a lowercase. This should be lowercase. Okay. Okay. 2 minutes more. Anything wrong with this? What's wrong with this? There's a little error here on this loop. What am I trying to do? I'm trying to print an array that is three-dimensional, and I have one loop for one dimension, another loop for second dimension, and another loop for third dimension. Okay. Anything wrong with this array? Yeah, I use IJK. You can argue. I remember the first program I ever wrote, I used I in a loop twice, and I got 5 points taken off for each I because it was not a loop index. Okay? I'm not saying that's what's wrong here. Yeah.
You have three nested for loops.
3 nested for loops, and what could I have done? How could I have done better? That's exactly it. It says nested for depth is 2, max allowed is 1. Okay, plus I forgot the braces here. What's wrong with that?
What you could do is have a single for loop, and then every time you get to the length of the array, you automatically calculate by going through a single for loop what each of the numbers should be rather than.
So was that be clearer? I'm not 100% sure what you're going to do there, but I'm very wary of saying, no, you can't do it in one loop. Okay. So what would be? Oh, yeah. Anybody else have? How would I would never write such code. Yeah.
In this particular case, it looks like there isn't much of a point to have a three-dimensional array to begin with.
Oh, assume there's a why do you say that? I mean, I just created some hypothetical stupid array. Yeah. Assume there is a three. That's useful. Should I print a three-dimensional array using 3 loops, or what else can I do? All 3 loops in one method. Sorry? Yeah, I don't. How would you combine those loops? You really have to go through each loop. This is pretty clear, right? So what problem are you trying to solve? Okay, we will see the answer next time. Mix works? Okay, so just go to the mix in those case. Okay, and you should let me know that as soon as because I can create a new video. And Mix also has a video download, so I can just download that video and upload it back to YouTube. Okay, is that true that everybody found that after 20 minutes the audio is missing? So I generate that from PowerPoint. And you can, if you have Windows, you can always download the PowerPoint and play it. Okay, because if the mix is fine, then the PowerPoint is fine. Okay, other things? Okay, so we looked at some style errors last time, magic numbers, nested if depth. We also looked at nested for depth. And we didn't quite see a solution to the nested for depth issue. We did see the solution for the nested if depth issue. We tried to branch in the else part rather than the then part. Okay, and somebody asked me yesterday, look, I have this high nesting. Will I get points taken off? And I said no. Okay. Those are things you should have really. I mean, if else is something you learn in CS1, and how to use it you should learn in CS1. I'm not going to duplicate all that checking. Otherwise, there's just too much checking. And I'm going to focus on things that you might not have learned in CS1. So we'll check those. Okay. Now I do want to go and highlight the CS1 checking because we've got a tool that will do the checking for you. And I'll go back to that. But today I want to focus on things that you might not have seen in CS1 and that are directly related to the topics we're studying here. Okay. And we're looking at style. Style has to do with interfaces. Have to do with style. Okay. One or two people said, "Why? What's all this stuff? Annotations and interfaces. I can make my program work." And that's just such a wrong thing to say in this class after we say in the beginning that this is about writing good code and not writing correct code, after all the constraints I put in. So interfaces have to do something about how the program is compiled and executed, but they also have to do with style. Okay, so you can do without interfaces, but we will require you to use interfaces. Okay, so again, what's an interface? Interface is something that's implemented by a class. So a class goes and says, I'm this class, and I implement this interface. Okay? And you can see the class view. You can see the whole class here. Or you can go to the interface and see something that is smaller in size, but that tells you something about the class. Okay? Now, why provide these two views? All the information in the interface is in the class. So why provide the interface view?
It helps you draw connections by classes that would implement these.
So you may have more than one class implementing the same interface, and you can, a lot of life is about abstraction. Computer science is completely about abstraction. And I've abstracted two classes into an interface, right? That's one reason. What if there was going to be only one class implementing that interface? Would that still be useful? If you want to duplicate it, if you want to understand what's going on. So you can look at the class and understand what's going on, and you can look at the interface and understand what's going on. So what advantage might the interface provide? It's not as crowded. Okay, there's multiple levels of explanation in anything. So you have a book and you have a table of contents. Table of contents is useful. You can have a valid book without table of contents, but table of contents gives you some information. Okay, so why not just go and rather than having implements be this purple word that Java understands, just put a little comment there saying, see this file for my methods and provide all this stuff as a comment. Why build something like this into the language? Yeah.
It lets you use things like polymorphism.
It lets you do things with it. Okay? But before we go to polymorphism, just from documentation point of view, are you always guaranteed that the table of contents will be, unless if it's generated, it will be consistent. But if you generate the table of contents manually, are you guaranteed the table of contents will reflect what's in the book? To is human, right? So what kind of errors might be caught just from documentation point of view? If I was to say implements interface.
You know which methods are.
Okay, so if I go here and I comment out get height, I get an error. Okay, so it's saying what you advertised and what you're doing are not consistent. Okay, we can actually generate the interface also automatically using Eclipse commands, but for now we'll just do it manually so that we understand what's going on. But that's one reason why you want to go away from comments to something else. So, a lot of you guys in your first class were pestering me with, should I comment this? Should I comment this? And I try to tell you in as polite a way as possible that, I don't care. Because I don't know. I don't know how to write comments in a principled way. Okay? And in fact, good code should require few or no comments. But you do want to explain the code, and you partly explain the code by doing things that are better than comments. Comments are forgotten by the time the program is compiled. You want things that are remembered after the program is compiled. And interface is one of those things that is part of the language. It's not just forgotten, so it has got an active role. And the active role is that if you miss a method that is in the interface, it'll tell you. Okay? Now, what if I go and comment out one of the interface methods? What if I go and say, get height doesn't exist? Will I see any error? No. Why not?
The class can still define the method on its own.
It can define the method on its own. It's saying, this is what I provide minimum. Okay? If I come to this class and I say, I know what 401 is, that's minimum. If I know compilers also, that's bonus. Okay? So I can still do the job that's required by the interface. Okay? Now, what kind of guarantees do I really have? What if I, rather than returning weight, which is what we want to return in this get height method, get weight method, what if I go and return just some silly number? Am I still implementing the interface? The interface is a dumb kind of specification. It's a specification, but it's kind of dumb. It looks at the method header. It doesn't care about what's going on in the body. Okay? So you can always, you have some guarantee. If two classes implement the same interface, you have some guarantee that they are similar, but syntactically similar, not necessarily semantically similar. They don't have to have the same behavior. Okay? Now what if I go and in this set method, okay, so before I go to that. Now, so far it's only documentation. Let's talk about polymorphism. Okay? Okay, so I see a yellow line here. And what this is doing is a print method that goes and prints a BMI spreadsheet, which is of type this particular class name, which is this very long class name. And it's printing out the height, weight, and BMI. So I've written this print method. That might be useful. Printing any object is a good idea. If you do, and if you print an object without writing a special method, you get some kind of garbage. You get basically an identifier and not really what you might want to look at. And I am giving, this is my checks. My checks are giving a particular kind of error. What do you think I'm saying should have happened? Why do you think I don't like this particular print header? Yeah.
It takes the class, not the iterator.
It takes a class as an argument rather than a
Or, I'm sorry,
interface. Interface. Yeah. The lecture is about interfaces. So it takes a class rather than interface as an argument. Okay, and it compiles. No Java complaint. And why is that bad?
Well, then because you can only get the variables for that type of class instead of everything.
Okay, so if I want to print a BMI spreadsheet, I'm fine. But if I want to print another BMI spreadsheet, which happens to be the same interface, which happens to have all three methods that are accessed by this print method, I can't. Java is complaining now and saying, sorry, the method print of BMI spreadsheet, this is not applicable to the arguments in another BMI spreadsheet. So I don't have what he called polymorphism. Okay? And how can I get polymorphism? I can do exactly what he said we should be doing and we aren't doing. I can go and uncomment this method. And I can comment out this method. I no longer need it. And voila, the errors are gone. I can pass to the same print method a BMI spreadsheet or another BMI spreadsheet or a BMI spreadsheet with style errors. Okay? This is great. This is polymorphism. This means that I can operate, my method can operate on multiple instances of multiple classes. Okay? That's one of the beauty of object-oriented programming. And I get that because whatever I require here is in this interface. Now, if I was to go and take out the get height, suddenly my class doesn't, this method says, what height? We don't have a height in BMI spreadsheet. We do have a height in the class, but we don't have a get height in this particular interface. So sorry, I don't take this. Okay? So that's great. Somebody's looking out for us and making sure we don't do silly things like this. Okay? And I need to implement an interface. Java will say there's nothing wrong with not implementing an interface. So I can go and comment out this part. I didn't get any error. Okay? But I should have, if my CheckStyle is working fine, and maybe it's not refreshed. Okay, but I should really have seen this go yellow, and sometimes CheckStyle has to be done 2 or 3 times before the kind of checks I'm doing, CheckStyle is not really meant to do. CheckStyle is meant to do very localized changes, whereas I do changes that require the whole project to be rebuilt. So I don't want to do that right now. But when you guys do this, and you do it that a couple of times, you'll see a yellow line here saying, sorry, a class should implement an interface, at least one interface. In fact, it will say every public method should be in some interface. Okay, that's a requirement I have for you, that a class can have multiple interfaces. Okay, ideally a class should have only one interface, but we don't quite know how to do that right now. So a class can have multiple interfaces, and every public method should be in some interface. Okay, and if you guys want CheckStyle to work, just do the go to the project, do check code with class CheckStyle twice. Okay, because there's just some forward referencing. I need to go and look at the whole project, and the order in which I get the files is totally random, as far as I'm concerned. So you will see such errors in your next assignment. Okay, sorry you didn't do that. Okay, and let's see if at least this error comes about. Again, I'll show you. So if you look at this error, it says class rather than interface uses the type of VMI spreadsheet. Okay, so this particular error is still there, and it says you better use interfaces as types rather than classes as types. Okay. Questions about interfaces? Okay. Now let's go and look at all this stuff. Why do you think I went and is any of this stuff required to make the program run? Is it a comment? Comments got some different syntax. So what are these things? Do you guys know what these ACT things really mean, what they stand for? They're annotations. Okay, they're like comments, except the compiler remembers them. The compiler doesn't just strip them off and say they're gone. I can look at the object at runtime and figure out what annotations its class has. Okay? So supposing these were not annotations, supposing they were comments, were these good comments to put at the header? No? You like interface as a documentation. Why don't you like this as documentation? So what might I gain by putting the tag scanner bean in your projects, for instance? This is not a scanner bean, by the way. Who are you writing your programs for? Yourself. And who else? When you guys say, should I comment, should I not comment, who are you really commenting for? The graders. Okay? And you want to make their life easy. Right? So if the assignment says you should have a scanner bean, and you name your class SB or something, how does a poor grader, human grader, find out which your scanner bean is and check whether you did the right things? Why do you guys tag? You guys are so good at tagging in Piazza. I'm worse than you guys. I'm so happy to see 4 different appropriate tags. And what happens? I can go to a tag and find out, okay, what are all the CheckStyle messages? What are all the exam questions? What's wrong with tagging code? Same principle. Okay, you're going to have 40 classes in the end. You won't know which class is scanner bean at some point, perhaps. Okay, and you put that in some package which we did not decree. You called it some name which we did not decree, but we said at least go and tell us something about scanner bean. So just as a documentation, and if I'm going to do automatic grading, then it's even more important for the tool to find out which the scanner bean is, rather than try to figure it out, look at each class, see what properties it has, and say, aha, I found the properties. Okay? And if nothing else, it's just documentation. It's telling the grader, look, grader, and we have a common vocabulary. We know what scanner bean means. Okay? And this is my scanner bean. If you want to know what scanner bean is, go look at his assignment. Okay? So this is, again, getting rid of comments and making them active. Not getting rid of, but stepping up, improving on comments. It's still commentation, and it's active comments. Okay? And what, from your point of view, could this annotation help you somehow? Just as interface helped you, right? Interface told you that, if you, say, implement this interface and you did not implement a method in the interface, Java goes and tells you, you slipped up. Okay? Could somehow you benefit from putting the scanner bean annotation? Something I could do in CheckStyle? Something some of you might have seen that actually already. What is the scanner bean supposed to have? It's supposed to meet certain requirements. Could I not check those requirements in CheckStyle? If you look at those requirements, they're pretty stupid requirements. They're syntactic. Stupid, I mean they're not semantic. I could check those. This class does nothing about a scanner. It's a BMI spreadsheet. I just put the tag in as a wrong tag, okay? And if I go and look there, and if my stuff is, it goes and says, expected getters, getter for property scan string of type string not defined, setter of for property of type string not defined, okay? So when you go and put that scan string as a thing, you get warnings saying, hey, you're missing this. So you don't go and ask 10 piazza questions about what properties are meant. My tool is telling you, what you should be doing, okay? And you guys probably haven't seen this because you probably did it all right. If you didn't do it right, you first say scanner bean, then you go and fill in the methods, and it okay? It might work, okay? This CheckStyle thing is really complicated, and it's complicated mainly because I don't have a global view of the whole files, okay? So I just did a lot of stuff to do things repeatedly. And so just let me know about bugs. This is totally, new stuff, okay? And similarly, can you see property names being useful? Okay, we're going and saying at the front of the class, these are the properties I intend to implement. In fact, in C#, properties are built into the language. They're so important. Okay, in Java, they're not built into the language, so we are going and putting annotations here. By the way, the concept of annotations to document is Java's. It's a new concept. People really haven't figured out how to use it. And my use of this is, this use is mine, okay? And we can argue that you can argue against perhaps it. If you find any arguments against it, let me know if you can improve it. But I see no argument to not use it, okay? So somebody asked me if I could write open source software, is this what I can expect? I said, this is what you should do. Probably not what you expect because people haven't standardized on this stuff. This is still a new area. This is why computer science is so wonderful. Okay, we are inventing all the time. Okay, so annotations came, I think, in version -3 or -4 from current. Okay, so they're pretty new. Okay, so what kind of errors can I get? So we've seen that this is good documentation. By putting these properties here, can I help myself somehow? Can I catch some errors? If I go and say I've got property named BMI, could CheckStyle check there's a get BMI or not? It could. Okay, so what am I getting here? I'm getting here a message saying declared property ideal BMI does not have a getter. So you are cheating, you are lying, or you are lazy. Okay, so you haven't done this work. And similarly, here I go and say BMI is an editable property. Okay, and that's not true. So I get a message saying declared editable property BMI does not have a getter. Okay, so you see again and again with interfaces, with these annotations, with this CheckStyle tool, you are helping the reader, you're helping yourself later. You're maybe getting, in the case of interfaces, you're getting to write more powerful programs, polymorphic methods, and you are, I guess I've said all of the things, okay? So any other question? Okay, now here's something else you guys should look at. Let's see if this has got populated or not. Look at this infos. It says, and sometimes it says class defined, and info is a good thing. Info is not a bad thing. Okay, so my assignment requires you to have main.assignment something. Okay, main.assignment1 or main.assignment2. It also requires you to have a scanned string, a class that has got a tag called scanned string. I can go and build into my system a check that says, did this particular, when I'm looking at a particular class, I can go and say, does this class implement, is this class one of the classes I'm expecting, the grader is expecting? And you're saying here, look, class matching main.assignment star defined. Okay, so good, you've defined something that I'm expecting, and by the way, the unmatched classes are these. Okay, then you go and implement one of those matched classes, those classes, and it'll say, I found that class too. Okay, that's good. Okay, you're on the right track. So sometimes you do need feedback of this kind, and the infos. So we saw some Piazza messages saying, what are these errors? No, these are not yellows. Okay, errors are yellow, these are blues. Blues are good. okay? And that's an info, okay? So that's again something you gain by putting in scan string. You put in scan string, and the system says, good, I'm glad you have a class called scan string, okay? But you don't have these things in scan string, scan bean. And then you put the scan string property in scan bean, and it says, even better. You've now got the properties I'm expecting. Now you can do garbage in those methods, okay? That's when we'll go and run your program and see whether it works or not. But if you just did this much and got the program wrong, you can get some points, right? So you can get some partial credit just because you at least learned something, okay? And typically what happens with these classes is that there's no partial credit given because it's just too hard to look at the code and find these little things, okay? So by providing all this information, you do better, okay? Let's go and see if I can stop this record. Okay, let's look at the mystery of this particular code. We had nesting level of 2. You can say this is 0, first one is 0, second one is 1, and the third one is 2. How could we fix this problem? Anybody thought about it? Use different methods for each loop. What are we really doing in each loop? This loop says, I'm expecting an array of what? How many dimensions? 3. This loop is expecting an array of 2, an array of 1. Okay? So can't we first build a method that prints arrays of dimension 1? Then we create another, and that can be used to just print arrays of dimension 1. Okay? It can also be used to create arrays of dimension 2. If we create another method that prints arrays of dimension 2 that uses the first method. And then we created a loop to print arrays of dimension 3. Okay? And that's what we're doing here. And why? What kind of principle you think I'm following in doing this? Yeah, I've got rid of nested loops. I've got rid of horizontal space. What programming principle might we be satisfying here? Sorry? Reusability, excellent. You know, I've been able to now use that inner loop to print arrays of dimension 1, arrays of dimension 2, arrays of dimension 3, arrays of dimension n. And reusability comes about because we followed even more abstract principle.
Is there a method where you can find the dimension of an array?
You can go and find the length. You can find, you have to use reflection, something called reflection.
Because if you could do that, you could do it recursively.
Okay, let's not get into that direction right now. You will have to, what you'll have to do is basically use something called reflection, which I don't want to get into, okay? And most loops can be done recursively too. But let me just get back to the point I was trying to make. So you're trying to do reusable code, and even if this was not reused, would this be a little easier to understand perhaps? Yes? Because there's this principle called separation of concerns. Don't let one piece of code do two things. Okay? Printing array of dimension 1 is a separate task than printing the array of dimension 2. Keep them in two different methods. Okay? So that's something, and then this is divide and conquer, you understand things better. So that's what's going on there. Okay, so this is my modular print array. It goes and it goes and says, okay, print array of dimension 2. That goes and says print array of dimension 1. And that goes and asks, so here's where we are looking at the dimensions. This is dimension 2, this is dimension 1. I did not make it array of method of dimension 3. I just hardwired that in, a method that takes a parameter of dimension 3 array. But you could have easily generalized this to that. Okay, so we've gotten rid of that problem. Okay, so nested loops is a symptom of sort of lack of modularity problem. Okay, let's look here. Why do you think we are complaining here? If P equals hello.
If it wouldn't equal, well, either way, if it doesn't equal hello, setting it to hello would still have it end up as hello in the end. There's no reason to check because it would always end up as hello.
Or is P hello already? Oh, you mean semantically this is stupid? Yeah, sorry, this program is just nonsense. Okay, that's why it's got all these magic numbers. I'm just trying to show constructs. But syntactically, CheckStyle doesn't know all this stuff. Why is CheckStyle complaining here? Okay, so I've got hello here and I've got hello here. I've got the same, we argue against magic numbers because, what if you said 1.73 here and 1.72 there and you really meant the same number, right? So we've got hello repeated twice, so that's one problem right here. Okay, that it'll tell you that sorry string repeated twice. Okay, that's one problem. We should put that in a named constant. Another problem that would make your program fail maybe because we did this equals. Supposing we really want to do this, I mean, a stupid thing to do, but suppose we really do want to do this, could we do something else? Could we instead do this or this?
The second one is going to be a problem unless you want the strings to be the same object.
Okay, so if we want to compare the contents, we better not use equals equals. We better use equals. So this is the worst solution. What about this? Why is this not giving yellow line? P could be null. Okay? If P is null, P is pointing to no object, you cannot invoke any method on that thing. So this will go and give you a null pointer exception. But if P is null, we know it's not the same as hello, right? So this is much more resilient to such situations that even if P is null, it will go and execute this. Okay, so you will see in CheckStyle, the message equal avoids null, I think it's called. Okay, that should save you guys from these problems. Okay. Okay, here's one. I make this mistake all the time, guys, and I'm trying to save you from it. What's wrong with this? Why a yellow line here? Semicolon after the if. So, why is that bad?
It won't ever execute the stuff inside it.
If length in inches less than or equal to 0, it'll always do the statement. This is considered the next statement. And we are just saying that, there's an empty statement for the then part. That is just totally unintuitive to me. And I've made this mistake twice in my life, and I've spent, almost a day trying to figure out what's going on. Okay? So this is to save you guys. Okay? Sorry, I can't hear you. Why don't you come and ask me a private question and read? Or we'll answer the question next time. Either way. Hi.
I just have a quick question about the sign already.
CheckStyle. So CheckStyle is just this infrastructure that I'm using. The code is all mine. Okay, and I'm using CheckStyle in a way it was not meant to be used. CheckStyle is meant to look at just this immediate pieces of code and say if something's wrong with it or not. Whereas I go and tell you, do you have a line? If you're doing a get line, is that really a line, which is defined in some other class? Okay, so I don't have enough information to make that judgment immediately. So you need to really, to make this work, you need to go to the project and just say CheckStyle the whole project, and then you will get the right results, okay? And so that's something I want to say. And then the other thing is, so you'll see some messages here in the top, which have to do with the fact that I had to look at multiple files to get the answer right, and CheckStyle is really not meant to do that, okay? I want to just touch on one thing, which is what comes out here. It says here, okay, so before I go to the message, let's go and see the problem. I have a function here called bad add. What do you think is wrong with it? My CheckStyle is complaining at the top, and we'll see what's saying later. But what do you think is wrong with the way this has been coded? What bad style might it be following? P is useless. That's good. Anything else? Yeah, that's certainly true. I had to add this here.
It's just calling another method without doing anything else.
So it's a useless method, and it's calling another method. Yeah. Yes, and I should have tried to come up with a better example. Anything else that you can just look at it syntactically without having to think?
Using a more complex method than you need to do.
So
Oh my God, wait, whoa,
it just calls add,
yeah.
but something I could do in a mindless way and say this is wrong. Something CheckStyle could find out.
You're storing the result in a variable first and then returning the variable.
I'm storing it in a variable first and returning the variable, so what's the point of it? But let's just, so that's what these guys are saying, you know? But what about storing the result in a variable, changing a variable? Is that a good idea in a function? What's, so the function is taking the value and storing it in a variable, in a global variable. Has anybody ever told you that's a bad idea for a function to do so? So what's a function? A function is supposed to take its arguments and return something that is a function of those arguments and nothing else. And if I call the function 3 times, it should be equivalent to, with the same arguments, it should be equivalent to calling the function once. If I say, what is 2 and 2, and I do it, ask the question 3 times, it doesn't become 6 the third time. That's a pure function, that's a mathematical function. So what am I doing? I'm changing a global variable in a function. A function is just supposed to return the result. This function has a side effect. It is changing a variable in the function. Okay? So if I do a get p after calling bad add, my p is different. What has that got to do with addition? That's part of the reason why this is a stupid function, because it's, you know, it's nothing to do with addition. So this is something I can look at syntactically and say, that's a bad idea. Okay, and you guys never heard of side effects when you were teaching learning functions? So side effects are bad. You guys might have heard of functional programming. Functional programming is all about not having side effects. Now we cheat. Okay, so if I go and look at nextchar, what do you think about this function? Is this a good function? It changes the marker and then goes and says, I'm going to return what's at marker. This seems to be doing something with marker, right? But it's changing a global variable. So by that definition, it's a bad function, yet it makes sense. We all use next, int, next. I mean, we use a lot of functions like next. So it's a very complicated business about what's a good function and what's a bad function. I want to point that out to you. That, you know, a lot of times when we do reads and next, we are actually having side effects. We can't live without side effects sometimes. That's why we have non-functional languages. But in functional languages, you have no side effects. And I just want you to sort of realize that. And what CheckStyle will do is it looks like certain keywords like read, next, scan. And it says, yeah, we know these are the kind of situations in which we allow side effects. Otherwise, it'll complain and say, sorry, your function has side effects. And that's what the message means. That's what I wrote in a CheckStyle check. And that's what it really means. Okay, so I really want you to understand side effects. And also, I want to tell you about getters. If I do get p 10 times in an object, will I get the same value each time? Has it? Depends on whether set p was called in between or not. Get p does not change a global variable. It returns the value of a global variable, making it sort of halfway between a bad function and a pure function. Okay? So get p is always allowed because it's reading the value of a variable. Even though in functional languages, you don't want that to happen also. Okay? So I just want you to be aware when you write functions, there are 3 classes of function. One is a pure function, that's a function totally of its arguments. One is a halfway between function where you can read the global variables but not change them. So you have no side effect, but it's not pure. And then you have a side effect function which changes the global variable. Okay? And that's what this message, you know, there in the top said, that look, this function is changing a global variable. Okay? So that ends my discussion on style. I have not yet put style on my web pages. So now I'll create the whole style 4-part series and do at some point look at that stuff because that's going to be important. Okay. Okay, that's it, and I think we are near end time also. So I'll put the poll in today, and we'll hopefully have a new model on Tuesday.